It is time for a new U.S. Constitution. So what's wrong with the current Constitution? Let's go through it real quick. It's not robust enough. It's not protecting itself. The mechanisms we have for the Constitution to protect itself, the Supreme Court's not protecting it. Let's go through it real quick. It's Constitution Day 2022, September 17th, which is tomorrow. So let's go through this. Please subscribe to my website if you could, and my YouTube page. The proper respect for the U.S. Constitution. Very much respect the U.S. Constitution. It has advanced human civil liberties and limited government throughout the world. Not just in the United States, but by example, it has created a worldwide advancement in the standard of living, more justice, more civil liberties around the world. So it is a phenomenal Constitution, but it cannot protect itself. So we have a lot more here. Over the last 100 years, America's support of liberty and limited government has diminished. So it's not in the hearts of the American people and the voters as much as it used to be. Over 70% of government spending and over 90% of the regulations are not allowed by the U.S. Constitution. So we're not living by it. So Congress and the President create new violations on a monthly basis and submitting old violations as standard practice going into the budget, and this stays there. The job of the Supreme Court is to protect the U.S. Constitution, and it's not doing that. It's allowing too much to continue on. It's letting the political process to work, but it's supposed to block that political process when it goes beyond the bounds of the Constitution. So the U.S. Constitution cannot protect itself. So let's go over the new Constitution I am proposing. I have a full 14,000 word Constitution. It's a lot longer, about 3 times as long as the current Constitution, but I use those words to protect civil liberties, use those words to protect limited government and to hold back. I only give government authority, and then I pull it back everywhere they're not supposed to have authority. So I do that. So the new proposed Constitution keeps what's essential safeguards. It has a real structural power to limit government and protect civil liberties that the current Constitution does not have, because our rights and liberties are being violated, and the Constitution is being violated by the government's doing a lot more than what the Constitution allows it to do. It retains the separation of powers to the 3 branches, legislative, executive, and judicial. So it maintains that, but it goes much farther in the division of power. We'll go over that in a little bit. It replaces the representation from the winner of elections to your selection of your representative. So instead of voting and then winning or not winning to get a representative to go to Congress, to go to your state legislative branch or city council or whatever, you're going to select a representative. As long as you join with 5% of your fellow citizens, you can select your representatives, and that representative will represent those people that elected them, selected them. So no more elections. There'll be elections within your representative group. So you get to get with your representative group, have elections within those, within your membership. So additionally, every citizen selects their representative in each of the 30 sectors. So I divide government power into 30 sectors. No one person is allowed to have power in more than one sector. So somebody who's in charge of police are not in charge of education. People in charge of environments, not in charge of the roads. People in charge of the military, not to say people in charge of, let's say, taxes. We separate all that government power into 30 sectors. Each one of those gets the legislative, judicial, and executive branches. So you have a lot of separation of power there, significantly. So the federal government will have control of about 5% of GDP, down from about 25% of GDP. So we move a lot back to the states, but not just to the states, to the people to do it themselves. Or what I'm going to talk to you about in a minute, competitive governance. So most significant addition to the advancement of liberty is the creation of competitive governance. So we haven't done it yet. There's aspects of it in some parts of the world, in some parts of in America. I'm not going to get into that right now, but we need to go to a more competitive governance. Sure, a few areas of government need to have be across the board, monopolized, such as creating whether to go to war or violent crime laws. So, but people who want to make laws about banking, you can have competitive governments. People who want to make laws again up around insurance or education, you can have competitive governance. Almost everything can go competitive governance. I put it around 90%, depends on how you want to measure it. But some things, yes, we will have to go monopolize across the board, whether we go to war or not. And societal oversight is going to be big on some of these things. And that's going to be by representatives. So it's monopolized more. But 90% can be competitive governance. So we do have some limitations on that competitive governance. You cannot create negative externalities. Let's get into it in a minute. Everything is addressed in the proposed constitution. So I address everything. I set up a structure. In that 14,000 words is creating that structure, separating everything into 30 sectors and talking about each sector for a few paragraphs, really add up those words. So it's 3 times longer because I talk about 30 sectors, because I really go in deep and limit government here, here, and here. The founding fathers did not know how the Constitution was going to be violated. They could not have put all those clauses in there. They wanted to keep it short, sweet. Now, they violated it. I'm putting all the clauses in to say, okay, we saw how they violated over here with education, with the environment, with this, with that. And we're putting language in the Constitution to help protect people's liberty, people's rights, and limit government where they want to limit it. So every citizen selects how they want to be governed. So they select their government. Then within the membership, they vote for the leadership of their government. So their limitations are you cannot create negative externalities. You have to take care of what you're dealing with: education, environment, taxes, identity. There's a lot of sectors. We can look at that. It's on my website. And you'll probably see a picture on whatever social media you're doing, or go to my website, go to that link. So competitive government only governs their members. So it's important. If you have about a dozen different competitive governments, you select yours. You get governed by yours only. Your neighbor selects another, they get governed by them. So family law, there's not a problem. We have 50 different competitive governances right now for state governments, but you have to move there. I'm going to have where in one neighborhood, you have a dozen. Everybody gets to choose. You don't have to move out of your neighborhood, out of your city, out of your state to change governments. Neighbors can live next to each other with different governances. I go to work next to somebody who was in North Carolina, who lives in North Carolina. We have different family governances. Other state regulations and laws. We live under different state laws, state regulations. So we have that already. I'm just going to do it without having to move. And a lot of that can happen. You know, of course, we will go into those 10 or 20% of the things that have to be monopolized. Depends on how you look at it. I try to take as much to the competitive governance as we can, and let's keep on going. Okay, governance is all-inclusive, such as taxes, benefits, regulatory, and bureaucracy. So it's highly important to understand your competitive governance. The one you select will tax you, will give you benefits, will give you regulations, and give you the bureaucracy around that. So as long as you're not creating negative externalities and hurting people outside of what you're doing, you can have your governance. A set of reforms creates competitive school boards. So that's one aspect. Competitive healthcare systems, there's 2 sectors within that because it's so big and does so much. Competitive retirement planning. So if you people who want to do Social Security a little bit differently, Medicare a little bit differently, you can. Competitive roads. We're going to have private roads, transponder system. I have a system for that, as well as competitive almost every part of regulations, from labor law to manufacturing regulations and the like. You could have your regulations. Now you have to have your ratings on there. You're going to have high information, good information coming out. You have to be honest and ethical. We have a system to make sure that happens. We don't just leave it up to a wish and a prayer. We have a system for that. That's going to be important. This proposal creates competitive police and competitive military. Now, it's societal oversight. Representatives will control the military. They don't get to do what they want to do. And it's a 70% vote to do almost anything that goes up to the monopolized government. So To declare war, you need 70%. Do a lot of things, you have to have 70%. If it's monopolized, obviously the competitive governances can do what they want to do. But when you have competitive police, competitive courts, competitive prisons, and the like, there's a funding mechanism for all of this. There will be oversight. There will be civil liberties. There will be a body of representatives that will give the power to be a police officer. So we have everything settled. We have a focus and a structure for everything to make sure it's not going out of bounds. Don't just assume this can't work. Competitive police can't work. Private police can work. They have to cooperate together. We're going to going too far into that rabbit hole. There's a lot more on my website about that. The system retains a mandate for citizens to help the poor, but moves that mandate from taxes to the current government to mandate to donate to a competitive charity system. So, helping the poor, no longer a government welfare system. We totally move away from that. We move to a competitive charity system, but the mandate through taxes to give to welfare switches from a mandate to give to the charity system. So look in that. So it's not necessarily a freely given donation. It is a mandate that you give, but how you give it, what that charitable philosophy is very much up to you. So competitive governance can be libertarian all the way up to socialist, whatever you want, but they only govern their members. Governance is all-inclusive, just like I said before. I put this slide back in there. Its governance is all-inclusive, such as taxes, benefits, regulations, and bureaucracies. They do it. The monopolized governance, other than the military and a few other little things, is not getting that money. It's not the monopolized government doing it. Unless you're talking about the military, which is a little bit different animal. I go through all that. Okay, competitive governance only governs their members. Governance is all-inclusive. So I keep on coming back to that. It's so important to understand that one. This proposed constitution is about 14,000 words compared to about 4,400 words for the current constitution. Those extra words talk about the 30 sectors: education sector, environmental sector, police sector, the diplomats, commander-in-chief, helping the poor. All those things are highly important. How we do the taxes competitively. Those words are there to give power only to where it needs to be, and then pull back and put limitations around that power. So, about done with this video here, and it's really easy to find everything on Haley2024.org, and until the next video.